We'll go back to the baseball. Okay, great. So now we have our basic constructors and things declared. We will, I don't know, let's actually declare or define the earlier virtual method that is pure virtual in ball, but here we're going to actually define it so that we can create an instance of baseball. So that's a constant character pointer get type. So no longer is this baseball class, an abstract class, because we are inheriting ball being an abstract class. However, because we have a definition, or we will have a definition of the pure virtual member in this class, it's no longer abstract. If we were to not have this, say we commented it out, baseball in this instance would be another abstract class. But with it, we have a totally usable class. So now let's go into baseball CPP's file. We will define the constructor. Oh, we need to include baseball first. Baseball. Now notice there is what is called an initializer list. When you are declaring your constructor, you can use this colon as a symbolization for an initializer list. This is to call, you can actually initialize any variable, any member of your class this way. However, assuming that ball had no default constructor. In fact, let's remove the default constructor from ball so that it's impossible to do this. And now we only have this constructor. We must pass it a radius. In order to do this, you use an initializer list. Since we're inheriting ball, we just say ball, and then we put some radius. We'll say our baseball's radius is always 2. And then you can add more items. We will give this an item called constant character pointer of type. So it has a private member type. And we can use a comma and initialize type. And we'll call it a string of baseball. And now, since everything is initialized, you do need these braces still. However, you don't need to put anything in them if you're just initializing items. If you were going to do other checks and things, you can still write code in there. But in our case, it's unnecessary because we've initialized all of our items. So we will use a default baseball empty destructor. And we will actually write our get method now. Baseball get type. And this will return our type member. So now we have a fully inherited baseball, which inherits type baseball. So we can go back to main.cpp. As you see, I've cleared it out. We no longer need to include ball. Instead, let's include baseball. And let's create an instance of our baseball. We can call baseball B. Now we can print some information about it. We can print out the initial radius, or we'll just say radius for now. Our get radius member is inherited from just any generic ball. Baseball gets all the methods that ball has actually defined for us. So that's why this works. We have a radius, we have a type as well, which we should be able to get type. Let's end the line. It's easier to read this way. And so now we have a type of baseball. Also, inherited from the original ball, we can set the radius as well. We can set it to, say, 3. Initially it will be 2 by how we declared it, but now we can set it to 3. New radius. Get radius again. And let's run this and see and make sure everything works as anticipated. Again, I'm going to do the Windows hack here. And everything worked as anticipated. There should be a line break here. However, our original radius is 2, our type is baseball, and our new radius is 3, as how we set it. So you see, inheritance works exactly as anticipated. We'll go over a quick recap to make sure that everybody got everything. So what we did to our ball class is we added a virtual method, getColor, and we defined getColor. I'll add that right here to make sure that we can see that this worked appropriately. We will getColor, say, right here. We can endline, and now we can do b.getColor. In fact, for a baseball, we can say that we will set color. This is use of that protected member. And we can always set our color. Initially, we'll just call it white. So every time we initialize a baseball, we call this method, which is a method from ball, inherited and protected, and it will set the color appropriately. So let's make sure that that worked. And there it is. We initialized white. Great. So what did we do? A quick recap. We created this getColor method and we defined it here in ball.cpp. Notice that we could have overridden it in baseball.cpp. However, the functionality would have been the same, so rather than have code duplication, we can just use the same exact code. We also added the pure virtual method, meaning it must be overridden, getType. And we also added a protected member, setColor. The protected member can only be accessed by classes with sufficient privileges. Generally speaking, those which inherit. Therefore, baseball, we created a class baseball, inherits ball and gives public access to all ball public members. So, we created a baseball and we have a virtual destructor, just as we do in ball.h, because we have virtual methods. Otherwise, the virtual destructor makes sure that everything gets cleaned up appropriately. Then we have our declaration of virtual getType. This time it is not pure virtual, and we define it in ball.cpp. Now, one final note is that ball.h is implicitly included, meaning that baseball.h has it. As you can see, we have already included it, so there's no reason to explicitly include it again in main.cpp, although we could. Also important to notice is that we can no longer create a ball object because it is a abstract class. The error reads, error, object of abstract class type ball is not allowed. Abstract means that it has a pure virtual function in it and cannot initialize because that member has not been defined. And you cannot define a pure virtual function within the class that it is declared as pure virtual. And that wraps up inheritance and virtual functions. Again, as usual, please contact me with any tutorial requests, anything that bothers you or you're concerned about. Feel free to email me, leave a comment, and good luck with your programming.